Well, first off, tell me your first experience with Deshaun, because he came in here as a young kid. I think he said around third grade is when he
Yes,
started
sir.
to come here.
Yes. Deshaun, it was an after-school program we had, and anybody from the age of 5 to 8 years old I had. So that's how I was formally introduced to him, as him just coming into an after-school program. And we played many games, kickball, basketball, and of course basketball was his favorite. But that's how I come to know him, yes.
And what was he like as a youngster? Because he's kind of a precocious, big smile, big personality, big personality when he walks into the room.
Yes, and he was that way as a kid. I mean, he had this big smile. And he was big for his age. He was the biggest third grader I ever saw. He was already about almost 6 foot tall in the third grade. But he had that charming smile. When he smiled, he'd melt your heart, you know, when he smiled. And that's, that was Deshaun.
When did you introduce the game of basketball and see the passion and the love that he had for the game?
I think the kids that grew up in the neighborhood, we grew up with basketball. I mean, we played basketball in this gym, 7 days a week. The Y was open and that basketball gym was open. That's what he loved to do. And so he loved the game. He loved basketball. He loved to dribble the ball. He loved to shoot. He wasn't very good at shooting, but he loved it. And I saw that enthusiasm in him. And so we just fed that.
Talk about how he developed in the game of basketball, because he had a passion for it, but developing his skill, he had to go through a lot of different steps, and he put in the hard work.
Oh, yes. One of the things that I think that I taught him was he was ahead of a lot of kids in a lot of different ways, because he was hungry and he drank in everything that he was taught. So I just taught him what I knew. I gave him just the basic elementary things, how to shoot baskets, how to make baskets, and then how to score, how to move your feet. What do you do as you on offense? How do you get around a man? How do you position yourself to score? And that's what I did, and we go over that again and again and again. And he absorbed that very quickly. I mean, he's a quick learner, and it stuck to him. And so the things I taught him, he just practiced them over and over, over and over. And as he did that, it was amazing to watch it, because he would do that. I would do it against him, and he'd say, well, that's not fair. And I said, well, when you learn it and do it against kids, they're going to say the same thing. And so what he did, it was amazing to see that happen and seeing that smile on his face. But basic fundamentals, high school moves in grade school, college moves out of grade school, just going in, and then I showed him what pros would do. And so he learned those things. I mean, he picked them up, and I was just so happy to see that happen.
Talk about the shooting and how you got him to want to be a good shooter and your kind of philosophy behind shooting.
Hard work, practice, every day. I would show him by just your left hand, the middle finger being in the middle of the basket, watching, as I said before, the back of the rim, shooting at that, looking at that, focusing on that. The second thing I told him to do was play his movie at home. When he went home, before he went to bed at night, I said, see yourself making shots, seeing them go in. And then when you come to the gym, put that movie on. And he'd go, that's amazing. And then I told you about the hands. I said one of the final things, and I think it was about maybe the 5th grade, I was shooting and I wasn't missing. And he asked me, how are you doing that? And I shared that story about the hands. And I said, ask God to show you those hands and keep looking for them. And when he did and he saw them, he started scoring. He goes, that's amazing. I said, yes. But he put in the hard work. I mean, he worked at it. Daily he worked at it. So that's one of the things I think that the work ethic that Sean has, that's what makes him a good shooter.
For somebody who doesn't know about the hands, how would you describe it? And tell me what that process is and what the hands mean.
Well, I have a very deep spiritual root. my relationship with God is one that I trust Him and I believe in God. And so as I was practicing and shooting, I was saying, God, I want to make the shots every time. How do I do that? And I kept shooting, and this voice was saying, shoot to the hands. And I kept looking at the basket, didn't see him, and it said, shoot to the hands. And all of a sudden, I saw these huge hands above the rim, just like that. And I shot them, and the ball went right in the basket every time. And I shared that with Deshaun, and I told him, I said, Deshaun, that's absolutely true. God is absolutely true, and the Holy Spirit is absolutely true. And play with that intent. Play for Him and ask Him. When you're not making baskets, look to the hands. And he did. Wow.
Do you still see that in him nowadays?
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Oh, yes. I see a grown-up Deshaun, very mature, knowing where he wants to go and knowing what he has to do. I remember reading in the newspaper about the coach saying he has now become the team leader, that he's directing his ball players. He's getting those guys into play, and he's playing as a whole team. And that meant so much to me. That showed me that stage that he was going up in maturity, that part of his life, yes.
When did you notice that Deshaun was going to be special when it came?
Oh, man. He was special from the day I saw him. I really do, and I mean that from my heart. He was just special. He was one of those kids that you loved the minute you saw him. And everything he did, it was like a one-on-one with us. I would say something, he would do it. He would do something, I would cheer it. It was just that type of relationship. And I knew he would be somebody great, but I didn't know it was going to turn out like this. It's amazing. Yes.
From the game of basketball, did you see him kind of increase his self-confidence and get a lot of worth from seeing how putting in the hard work would pay off in the long run?
Oh, yes.
That's a tough lesson for a kid to learn, but it sounds like he picked up on it pretty easily.
He got it early because one of the things I did, I worked at it. I worked and worked, and he saw me do that. We played, I'm telling you, I couldn't tell you how many games we played in this gymnasium, day after day, and he never won. I remember him crying one time. I was kind of rough on him playing, and he said, well, I can't beat you. I said, well, there's a reason for that. I'm bigger, I'm older, I'm stronger. One day you'll be bigger, older, and stronger. And you do what I do to other ball players. They may not cry, but they won't win. And he did that. I mean, he took that personally, and he did it. He didn't gloat about it. You know, he wasn't the type of kid that beat you and trash talk you. Now, he didn't do it in front of me. Now, he may have done it. But he didn't do that because I didn't do it to him. I wouldn't gloat when I beat him. I would say, this is a lesson, learn this. And he learned them.